Okay, vaccinations. They're a bit like Morris dancing, aren't they, really? You either love it or you loathe it. But vaccination seems to divide the world, doesn't it, between those who say there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, they're perfectly safe and they're incredibly effective, and those who say they are the poison of Satan. And probably always with these things, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. And interestingly, a study from Australia has just come out where they are finding quite a link between the DTP vaccine, and particularly the Pertussis, the P part, which is whooping cough component of it, and allergies. And what they have discovered is that incredible epidemic of allergic children in the last 20 years or so, some needing hospital care, which seems to coincide with the introduction of a newer version of the DTP vaccine. And so in Australia, where, as I say, the researchers are based, the new DDP, which is the, I think it's the acellular version, came out in 1997, and suddenly we've seen from there on in an incredible increase on the graph of children who've been reporting all sorts of food allergies, skin allergies, you name it. And they're saying, well, what happened at that point for that graph to suddenly zoom up? And they said, well, one obvious factor is the introduction of this new vaccine, because, and they said, well, that in itself may be not enough. So they did a study of other countries where, again, this new vaccine was introduced, and lo and behold, yet again, they also found a sudden and rapid increase in allergic reactions amongst children. One clinic in Perth reported a 12-fold increase in cases, and those fatal anaphylactic shock increased by 10%. 18% of kids developed a food sensitivity, and 26% suffered from allergic eczema. So, as I say, they've seen the same patterns in the US and the UK, and now they want to really research this further, because yet again, the manufacturers of the vaccine just aren't prepared to take a look at this stuff. But these researchers saying, well, look, you could argue, well, it's in of itself, it isn't proof, which of course it's not, but it is alarmingly suspicious.
Well, and I think this is part of a bigger conversation, too, about vaccines. It's the conversation that the regulatory authorities, the governments, anyone in charge of childhood health doesn't want to have. And it's the kind of conversation that parents must have now. I mean, one of the big problems is that we're not asking any questions. We're not asking any kind of questions about vaccines. We're proceeding on the assumption of safety without, just prima facie safety. These things have to be good for you. So we're pumping in more and more. I think in the US, children get something like 30 vaccinations before they go to school, and many of them when they're infants. And no one is asking the obvious question, what does this do to a developing immune system? So we have that problem. We also have governments and local governments trying to crack down more and more and more by not allowing parents to have opt-outs to this vaccine, to these kinds of vaccines, if they want their children to go to school. I mean, but luckily, sometimes parent groups get together and actually shoot that down. We saw that in Florida recently, where parents, they were trying to do a more draconian type of law to prevent opt-outs, and the parents got together and successfully lobbied, and it was defeated. So that's the kind of thing we really have to have. But more and more, it's the kind of thing like in America with the gun situation. It's a conversation we all need to have, a reasonable conversation. We, for years, for nearly 30 years, have been raising this as a conversation, just asking the questions. And I know we are sometimes demonized as being rabidly anti-vaccination. We're not. We're just pro asking the questions. And the three important questions are, is it necessary? And you ask that of every single vaccine. Is it effective? You ask that of every vaccine. Some are more effective than others. Some are far more necessary than others. A lot of them are not very necessary anymore. And three, and most importantly, is it safe? And as we've seen with this acellular one, that big question of whether there's a tie-in between all of these antigens being pumped into immune systems, immature immune systems, and this explosion of allergies and more, like autism. No one's asking that question, so you've got to be the one to do that.
And just to add to that, the first part of your question, is it necessary? You know, part of that is also the nutritional status of the child. And that has to be a very important element in this, which is never, ever considered. And that when they do say, often measles or whatever it might be, is fatal, well, yes, it can be in a nutritionally depleted child. And that's when these problems can be far more serious and life-threatening. But, you know, that has to be factored in. And, of course, when they show these statistics, they never do mention that aspect of it. And I think it's an essential part of the conversation as well.
Well, and there's a lot of studies showing, for instance, talking about measles, that when undernourished, malnourished children from third world countries or malnourished children from, you know, American ghettos are given vitamin A, they stop dying from measles. It's that simple. You know, it is very much linked to nutrition. And all of these kinds of diseases are linked to the biological state of the child, their nutritional state, how healthy they are.